All right. Hello, everybody. This is Coresair Mack, President of the Illinois Mental Health Counselors Association. And today I'm joined by the one and only Pat McGinn. How are you doing today?
Fine, thanks.
All right, perfect. All right, so we'll go ahead and get right into it because there's a lot of stuff that we got to go over, and we're not even going over everything in this interview. So, all your fans want to know, how did you become interested in counseling?
Well, I was minding my own business, teaching in a Catholic girls' school in Washington. I was teaching English and religion, and my students in my sophomore class came to me and said, I was still a sister, a Holy Cross sister at the time. And they came to me and said, Sister, one of our friends is pregnant and is going to drop out of school. Will you talk to her? And it's her fault that I am in counseling, because I started talking to her and I worked with her and her mother to get her into a school that Washington had at the time, which was a special school for pregnant girls, so they could stay in school. They weren't allowed to stay in either the Catholic schools or the public schools. But it's Loretta's fault. If it weren't for Loretta, I'd still be minding my own business. But because of her, I started working with her and her mother to get her into the special school. And then I worked with our own school to accept her back after she had her baby, so she could graduate with us, all of which happened. So it's a very weird way of getting involved in counseling instead of just minding my own business teaching, but that's how it happened.
Wow.
So I blame Loretta for my whole career. It's her fault.
Right, it's her fault.
It's her fault.
Right. All right. Thank you, Loretta. Right, because without you, a lot of this wouldn't even be happening today.
Well,
So there's our guardian angel right there.
yeah.
All right. So then speaking of that, so then what school did you go to for your undergrad and your graduate degrees?
Well, that's another complicated story. Okay.
Mhm.
I started with my BA at St. Mary's College in Indiana. And that was the credential I had to go teach. And then once I got involved in this counseling stuff, I went to school in Washington. There was a school that was just getting started, which was the only public school in the District of Columbia. And but it had one graduate program, which was in counseling. So since I was doing counseling, I thought I better make an honest woman of myself and go get a counseling degree, which I did in the DC school. And I went in the summer, I went to Catholic University and took their courses in counseling. So I got a master's degree there. I had already gotten a master's degree in, of all things, philosophy at Notre Dame, even before I went out to teach in DC. But anyway, so now I have two master's degrees, one in philosophy from Notre Dame, and 1 in counseling from the University of the District of Columbia. So, you know, my story is not typical. It's not ordinary. It's all weird. But anyway, that's how it came to be. That's how come I have 2 master's degrees. Yeah.
Oh, nice. I did not know you had a master's in philosophy.
Oh yeah, from Notre Dame. Yeah.
Mhm. I might have to
Because I took courses in theology from St. Mary's because they had a theology school. But they didn't let me finish the master's degree. They said we had enough theologians in the order at the time.
Oh,
They thought theologians caused trouble.
really?
Yes, because the theologians were leading the efforts to change things, and they didn't like change.
Right. A lot of people don't. So it's understandable.
It's true. Yes.
Okay. So then you got your 2 master's degrees in counseling and philosophy. So then when it comes to therapy, how long have you been doing therapy for?
Well, some of my friends tell me I've been doing it my whole life.
Right.
But officially, I guess it starts around 1965 when I was teaching at St. Cecilia's and doing some counseling for the students. And eventually I started a counseling department. It's at St. Cecilia's. So that when I finally had to leave there in 1971, I think they had to they had to hire 3 people to replace me.
Oh,
But I did establish a counseling department at St. Cecilia's, which it had never had before, and we hired some very fine people to carry it on. The reason I was hiring people and leaving was that I was getting married then.
okay.
By then I had left the religious community, and I was marrying a young man who was also leaving the Catholic priesthood, and we married and came to Chicago.
Oh, wow. Okay.
See, I told you it wasn't a it wasn't a normal story. No,
Right. But those are the best types of stories, though, the ones that don't happen as planned.
that don't make sense.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. So then, besides St. Cecilia, so what places or what other places did you start working out of after you left there?
Well, I married Bernard McGinn and came to Chicago, and I looked for work to do, and I found a job at wait a minute. I found a job at the Depot, which was a family therapy agency. And so they hired me, and I became a therapist with them. And by working with them, I learned about family therapy. So we worked in teams. And so I was on one of the teams, and they valued me because I had so much experience working with teenagers. But I learned about family therapy from the people at that agency. And I was put in charge at different times with the work they were doing with DCFS. So I was put first, I think it was with the Southern District of, you know what DCFS is? Department of Children and Family Services.
Mhm.
So I was put in charge of this southern contract we had with them, and then later also with the northern one. So I learned a lot about how to work with Department of Children and Family Services and those social workers. And we taught the social workers a lot about how to do all this stuff.
Okay.
And there are some weird stories I could tell you, but I'll spare you those. So I was in charge with this southern contract for some time, and then also later with the northern contract for some time. But it involved our model was team family therapy. So we would include the social workers on our teams and working with families. So it was a good model, actually. I thought it was a very good model. Yeah.
All right, nice. Being in charge of the southern part of Illinois than the northern part of Illinois, they really just put you to work, didn't they?
Well, yeah. Whoever showed any kind of competence was put to a lot of work. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, it was very interesting to hear that you all had to teach the social workers a thing or two. So,
Oh yeah. Yeah. Now, one of the things that emerged out of all this was that we needed to get licensure for counselors. We didn't have a license. Social workers had a license. Psychologists had a license, but counselors didn't have a license. So eventually I got involved in that project.
oh yeah, definitely. We all thank you for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You helped make sure people like me will be able to get a job. All that fun stuff.
Yeah, I've had some people come and say, thank you, you saved my life.
Mhm. Yeah, 100%. All right, so then I don't think I asked you before, but did you start your own private practice or your own business?
Well, yes, eventually. One of the things that happened is that my husband, Bernie, was brought to Notre Dame to what would I call it? He was brought in as a professor, a temporary professor at Notre Dame. And when that ended, we came back to Chicago. And at that point, I decided that I would have an independent private practice. So that's when I started my private practice. Once I had a private practice, I realized that counselors needed to have their own licensure, which we didn't have. Social workers did, psychologists did, but we didn't. So we started working on that project for counselors. I have a whole article about how all that started, which I had planned to give to you tonight. But the basic story was that at the time, there was only a title protection for mental health people, so that the psychologists had a title protection act. Nobody else could call themselves a counselor, a therapist, a psychologist, unless they had the degree. But they wanted to change it to a practice protection, which meant that they could define all the practices that that were with their work, and nobody else could do that, or nobody else could claim that. That meant that all the counselors would be illegal.
Oh,
So because we understood that, and they had a bill before the Illinois legislature that did that. And we, at the last minute, just before the governor signed their bill, we got it interrupted to say that, and then we started working on our bill, the counselor bill, because if theirs had gone through, then everything we did would be illegal.
wow. I did
Yeah,
not know that.
yeah, no, nobody knows that except the old timers like me. But yeah, no, it was pretty serious stuff. And that's why we started working on counselor licensure,
Mhm.
even just to get our title protected in the law was the first step. And to get their practice protection bill killed, so that all they had was a title protection. Title protection means if you call yourself a psychologist, you have to have such and such credentials. If you call yourself a licensed clinical professional counselor, you have to have such and such credentials.
Mhm.
That was as far as we got, but that took years of intense work that counselors had to do just to get that title protection passed. So this is stuff that current counselors think it was there when they were born, and they're right. It was there when they were born. It's 25 years ago.
Right.
Later on, thanks to Dan Stacy and some of us, we also put in practice protection for counselors, but that was later. First, we had to protect our title, and we had to take out the practice protection that the psychologists had, so that they could not make all our work illegal.
Yeah.
So does that make sense to you? Did I explain it well?
Oh, yeah, you explained it perfectly. Like I said, this is all new news to me, so I'm just like
What I thought.
stunned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it was very interesting and very difficult work, because the mental health counselors in Illinois, the Illinois Mental Health Counselors Association, was extremely small. And it was a part of Illinois Counseling Association, but it was very small, not very powerful. And we had to go back to ICA and ask for some money to pay for a lobbyist, because in order to do anything in Springfield, we needed money and numbers. And IMHCA had no numbers, and never mind money. We didn't have anything. There were only, I don't know, 20 people who belonged to IMHCA at the time. So we had to go back to ICA, and we needed money to hire a lobbyist, and we needed numbers to quote to legislators. And so we had a big, hard struggle with ICA to get them to sign on with us. And I remember I had this very interesting session one time with the Illinois Counseling Association, and I was trying to get them to approve of giving us some money for our lobbyist. And I was getting a lot of pushback on that. And then out of the back of the room came this voice, and she said, well, what else are you going to do with the money? And nobody could think of anything. So they gave us the money. And
Yeah.
she saved the whole thing. She's one of my best heroes in all the world, because without her, they would have said no. They wanted to say no. They were all school counselors and school counselor educators. They didn't care about us and what we were doing.
Mm.
But that solidified the connection with ICA and IMHCA, which I have treasured ever since. And then, so that gave us some money to hire our lobbyist, John O'Connell, who was beautiful. He was so good to us. And he was working at a discounted rate. Little did the counselors know that what we were trying to get for him was a big discounted rate for a lobbyist. But anyway, we got it.
All right, good.
And we paid him, and he did a beautiful piece of work for us. So anyway, these are long-winded. So I'm sorry to talk so much.
Oh no, it's all good stuff. Like I said, I'm learning a lot of things for the first time. So no,
Well,
it's great.
that's why the connection between IMHCA and ICA is such a treasure to me,
Mhm.
because that gave us the numbers. When we went to Springfield, we could quote all those numbers as well. And that matters a lot. Numbers and money matter in Springfield. Numbers. So that's why having not just our little pathetic little group, but the whole of ICA, that was the numbers that we needed. Yeah. And we still use them. You know, those are the numbers we use in SECO.
Oh, definitely, which is good. I'm glad that, you know, that voice in the back of the room said, what else are we going to do with the money? Who would have thought that one sentence would have essentially influenced the entire history of the organization?
Exactly. I've never said her name in public, and I still don't, because I'm not positive who it was, but I have a pretty good idea.
Okay.
But I leave her in her anonymity. Yeah.
Mhm. All right, perfect. So, speaking of both IMCA and ICA, a lot of people may not have known, but you are actually president of both organizations.
Yes.
Mhm. So let's go through them one by one. Since I'm very biased, I'm going to go with IMCA first, right? So what led you to run for president of IMCA?
Oh, I don't know. It just seemed like it was my turn to take over.
Okay. Hey, nothing wrong with that.
You
As
know, those of us who were involved, we had to take our turn being taking our turn at leadership. It was no big deal. It was just sort of a duty.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, which
It
is
was,
good.
it was no big, huge promotion in life, I'll tell you that. You must know that by now.
Yep, I know that all too well.
Yeah. But, you know, the time came when you thought, okay, well, it's my turn. I need to do this. And I did. I don't know that I did anything especially wonderful. The
Okay.
things I did that I'm proud about were all in leading the effort to get the licensure. Yeah.
Okay, definitely. All right, so can you remember any of the other accomplishments as IMCA president?
Well, I was trying to think about that because you sent me that question.
Hmm.
I have a bunch of things I worked on. I can't at the moment sort out which came at which point in my career. Here are some of the things I know I did. Now, whether I was ICA president or IMHCA president or just floating around trying to cause trouble, I don't know which.
Right.
One of them was I joined some other people and we developed the Leadership Development Academy. So we started that. That was one of the things that I had something to do with getting started. Another thing was the Southern Conference. Yolanda, Yona and I started that one, but she was the main one. Do you know about the Southern Conference and how it got started?
I know about the Southern Conference, but no, I don't know how it got started.
It got started because the Southerners were complaining that they were being neglected. And Yona Clem and I, but mostly Yona, I don't want to claim more agency than I had, started a Southern Conference thing and we did the very first one, and it was very funny because we ordered the meal, the lunch. It was a sort of box lunch, and apparently in the southern part of Illinois, counselors are used to a plated lunch. Thank you very much. And they were furious. This one woman in particular was furious with us that we hadn't given her a plated lunch. So she stalked off with the carry-on lunch in her hand and left the whole thing in great umbrage.
Oh, wow.
It made me laugh. I don't know. I thought that was funny. But anyway, that was the Southern Conference. One of the things we started, and I don't know at which juncture we started this, but you probably participate in this, the President's meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we started that. It wasn't there before. It didn't exist when you were born. It was developed later.
Right.
But that was one of the ones. And there was always this feeling that we were developing things as a group. Your questions make it sound like I need to identify, I did this and I did that and I did the other thing. Those aren't my memories. My memories are we did this and we did that and we did the other thing. That's how we functioned. We always worked in group mode, group mentality, not I made this happen or I made that happen. That didn't make any sense to me. That isn't how we functioned. Anyway, that's what I have to say about that.
Okay, no problem. All right. So then with the ICA presidency and you running for that, what caused you to run for ICA president? Would you say that's the same thing as IMHCA?
Same idea that, oh, okay, it's my turn. I got to take over.
Right.
So we did that, and the same with editorship of the newsletter.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we just felt responsible at different times to take care of things. And I know that's not a very satisfying answer for you. But that is our mentality. We were always thinking in group terms,
Mm-hmm.
in group think, rather than I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. We really didn't think like that so much. Yeah.
Hey, like I said, teamwork is better than individual work. I would always agree with that.
Okay.
100%.
Yeah, because that's that's how we you know, there's a group of us. We're all older now and
Mhm.
fading off into the sunset, but at the time, that's how we thought and that's how we worked. And it
Yeah.
worked very well, actually. Another one that we started was, and this was within IMCA, was the the insurance, the insurance
Oh,
group.
the insurance task force.
That's it.
Hmm.
Yeah, I started the insurance task force with a couple of other people, Bob
Well,
Walsh for one,
okay.
and Norm
Hmm.
Dazenbrook. So as we early on, as we kind of got this licensure thing done, people emerged um, like Bob and Norm, who said, "Thank you, you saved my livelihood." And then I put them to work, and they always make jokes about that, you know, that, oh, she as soon as I came near her, she grabbed me and put me to work and called me fresh meat. And I guess I did a little of that, but they were good guys and they were willing to help out. Yeah. And and formed the insurance task force and lots of other good stuff. Well, you know that Norm teaches the class still to this day on how to start a private practice. Yeah.
Yeah. And I took that course too.
Yeah, sure. Of course.
Mhm.
Everybody has by now.
Right. Yeah, you've been
Yeah.
doing it for so long. I'm
Yeah.
surprised no one hasn't yet. So,
Yeah. Yeah. But those are some of the things that we did. Um, I was the first executive director of IMCA.
oh,
I can't remember if I was paid or not, probably not. If so, not much.
right.
But I did help the organization transfer over to Dan Stacy,
Mhm.
so that we had a professional executive director, you know, who was being paid. And of course, that still goes on. But lots of the things that are part of the structure of ICA and in IMCA got started in our time. Um, you know, we were the early ones. Yeah,
Yeah. You all were the trailblazers.
sort of. Yeah, I guess we were. Yeah.
Mhm. And I mean, look what happened. Years
Well,
later, and we're still going strong.
yeah, and it gets bigger.
Mhm.
IMCA is growing or has been growing for several years.
All right. So also, is there anything that you would like to tell people that are starting out in the field or have been in the field for a while, want to impart some knowledge or wisdom to them?
I want to say that it's very important to belong to your professional associations, to IMCA and ICA. These professional associations represent you to um, to legislatures, and we have to not forget that we need that kind of legislative solidity behind us. And we can't forget about it. We can't take it for granted. So that it's always important that we belong to especially in the state, that we belong to our state associations, and we don't break up our membership in these associations. I think that's extremely important. I remember trying to explain that to the ICA people back in the day when they didn't get it, that what we have to offer is numbers and money, and numbers matter. We can't just say, oh, well, you know, we are 1,500 people. No, we are 2,000 people.
Mhm.
That's who we are. So I would emphasize that. Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. And, is there anything that you would like to say that I haven't had a chance to ask you about?
I can't think of it. You've been very thorough. Thank you.
Oh, no problem. All right. So if anybody wants to ask any questions or anything like that, where can people contact you?
I have an email account that I'm happy for them to use. It's Pat McGinn, PATMCGINN, at the letter uchicago.edu. If they send it to me on that email, I'd be happy to answer them anytime.
All right. Perfect. Well, you heard it here, folks. Ask her any questions and she'll be happy to answer them. Watch, now you're going to get like a million
That's
emails.
okay. I'll do what I can. Yeah.
All right. Perfect. Well, thank you very much for the interview. I really do appreciate it. And like I mentioned, this is only part one because now we got to do a part two with the actual history and all that stuff.
Well, I brought in a bunch of history, but I'm happy to go over some more of it. When do you want to meet again?
Oh, that's a good question. I'll have to first make the questions, do some research, check my schedule, and then we can schedule all that fun stuff. But
All
no,
right.
I'm excited because now I'll finally get to learn everything. The secrets of the
Yeah.
universe will be
Right.
in my hand.
That's it. The secrets of the universe. We got them. Yep.
Mhm. All right.
Okay.
All right, perfect. Well, everybody, that'll conclude this interview. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in. And this is Coresair Mack, President of the Illinois Mental Health Counselors Association. And I'll see you all at the next interview. Take care.
Bye.